Titus 1 verse 7 both mention the fact that he must not be given to wine. Not given to wine. We know the effects of alcohol. And when people drink, they are diminishing their ability to be in control of their own actions. An elder certainly has no business diminishing his ability to be in control of himself. Not given to wine. The word here that's translated by that phrase carries with it more than just the idea of his being a non-drinker. And that certainly is the case. He must be a non-drinker. But also it carries with it the idea that he is not made quarrelsome by wine. You know, sometimes some people, when they're under the influence of alcohol, can become belligerent, very quarrelsome and argumentative. And certainly that is not the kind of person that needs to be leading in the Lord's church. And so this man is to be self-controlled in that he doesn't diminish his self-control by partaking of alcohol. In 1 Timothy 3, verse 3, and also Titus 1, verse 7, there are several characteristics that really kind of overlap with one another. So let's just consider them all together here. Not violent, not quarrelsome, not quick-tempered. You've probably met somebody and know some people who seem to take pride in the fact that they have a short temper. There certainly are people like that in the world. It does not take them much, or it does not take much to set them off. The smallest thing that they consider to be an insult, and they fly into a rage. The smallest thing goes wrong, and they lose control. There are people who have to have their way, and they're going to bully you and be belligerent toward you to get their way, and it doesn't matter who they have to step on to get it. There's a lot of people in the world like that. There's a lot of people in the world like that who want to be in positions of power. That very characteristic would lead them to want to be in a position of power because they always have to have their way, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get their way. Imagine what the church would be like if it were governed by a group of men who were quarrelsome and belligerent and even violent. Can you imagine Jesus being like that? When Jesus was reviled, though, Peter says he did not revile again. When he was treated unfairly, he didn't respond in a negative way. He was beaten, he was abused, he was mocked, he endured all kinds of shame, especially in the time of his crucifixion. He never tried to strike back. An elder needs to be like that, not violent. He's not a man who settles differences with his fists. He's a man who's able to talk things out with a reasonable, cool-headed demeanor. He's not quarrelsome. He's not quick-tempered. If he gets into a disagreement, he's able to talk about it. He's able to maintain control. He's able to discuss things in a reasonable, rational way. You see, he is a man of self-control. In in 1 Timothy 3 and verse 2, we see the term temperate used. And that word temperate means self-controlled. And so this idea of being in control at all times. He doesn't allow his passions to control him. He's sober-minded. Another characteristic in this category, 1 Timothy 3:2, Titus 1:8. That word sober-minded simply means that he's serious. He's sensible. He's well-balanced. Here's a man who has the maturity to make serious decisions in an appropriate way. We need men like that in leadership within the Lord's church. But he's not only to be a self-controlled man, he's also to be a selfless man. One of the qualifications listed is that he must be given to hospitality, or hospitable, as the New King James Version puts it. Now, that simply means that he's willing to be generous and helpful to others. Hospitality in the first century literally referred to those who would open their homes to those who needed help or needed a place to stay or needed food. An elder is to be one who is concerned about the needs of others and actively involved in helping to alleviate those needs. 1 Timothy 3:3, Titus 1:7, both say that he is not to be greedy for money. Not greedy for money. We know that Paul tells us that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. A man who has that kind of insatiable desire for material wealth is going to be easily corrupted by various things, and that's not what the Lord's church needs. He's not self-willed, not headstrong, not arrogant, not overbearing. He must be a self-controlled man. One last grouping, he is to be a knowledgeable man. He's to be able to teach. Able to teach. That's one of his primary responsibilities as a leader in the Lord's church, to be a spiritual guide to the church, to feed them that spiritual diet. And thus, he needs to be a man well familiar with the Scriptures and with an ability to tell others what the Scriptures say and explain them to those people. He is to be, or rather not to be, a novice, not a newcomer to the faith. See, that's a very dangerous thing. A man who is very young in the faith has a lot of time, or a lot of need, rather, to grow and to mature in the faith. A new Christian needs some seasoning. He needs the opportunity to develop some wisdom before he could be considered for a position of leadership within the church. And one more qualification that's listed in Titus 1, 9 through 11. Titus there tells us this. Let me just read the whole thing. Holding fast the faithful word as he has been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and convict those who contradict. For there are many insubordinate, both idle talkers and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for the sake of dishonest gain. The elders are to be on guard for the church and to be watchful for those teachers who would come in with false doctrine and lead the people astray. Should a situation like that arise, an elder must be the kind of man who not only knows the difference between the truth and error, but also has the backbone to put a stop to anybody who would teach something that is not true. He does so lovingly, but he does so firmly, following after the authority of God. Now, these are the qualifications that are listed in the New Testament for those men who would be leaders in the Lord's church. We need to understand those things. We need to be emphasizing them to our young men so that they can be developing them as they grow up, so that when the need arises, they can step in and fulfill that need for leadership in the church. Leadership in the Lord's church is of tremendous importance. Let's understand these things. Let's respect our leaders in the church. Let's pray for them. And let's make sure that we do all things according to the pattern that God has given. We hope you enjoyed our study today. If you'd like to study the Bible further, we'd love to send you one of our many Bible study courses. Or if you'd like a recording of today's lesson, we offer audio recordings on cassette tape as well as CD, and video recordings on DVD. If you'd like any of these, or if you have any other questions or comments, contact Bible Talk at Post Office Box 40, Fayette, Alabama, 35555, or you can email us at BibleTalk@centurytel.net. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you'll join us again next time.
Hello, I'm Jim Dearman, host of Good